Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens, a Star Wars fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and we got to introduce some of our guests here. We have Ron and we have Chris. You may have heard them if you've ever followed our DC podcast, Alice Worlds, where I've had Chris is my co-host and Ron has guested on there quite a few times. So we'll start with Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great, man. For those of, for the people out there who have listened to us on the DC show, if they thought we nerded out before, they haven't heard anything yet. So I'm stoked, still on a major high from last night and ready to break it all down with you guys.
And we have Chris. How are you today, Chris?
Life is good. The Force is strong with me today. I watched a little Andor after I watched Ahsoka. I'm catching up on some Star Wars stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, something I like to do with our guests here, and I started doing it after my around probably this time of my last guest, but I think I've kind of done stuff like this before. I know I've done it for like when I had Chris on the DC show before he became a co-host, where I was kind of like favorite, DC film or character and stuff like that. So we're going to go down the list of that with Star Wars. And I think we'll start with Ron again here. And then I guess I'm trying to think how I should do this. If we should go through all the questions with Ron or do one question at a time and then go Ron, Chris.
Let's do one at a time so we can kind of bounce back and forth.
Okay. One question at a time, you mean, or like all of them?
Yeah. Okay. One question, I'll answer, he answer, I'll answer.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so we'll start with Ron here. Favorite Star Wars film?
So we kind of discussed this one a little bit already, and I'm sure it's going to turn some heads. But my favorite Star Wars movie is The Phantom Menace. One of probably the most universally clowned on Star Wars movie ever, at least until the sequels came around, which I also think are overly hated on. But it was the first Star Wars movie I ever saw. It was what got me into the brand to begin with and started what's now been a over 20-year fandom that I've been in love with Star Wars, and it all stemmed from that movie. Darth Maul, I was obsessed with him as a kid. For 3 years in a row, I dressed up as him for Halloween. It just, everything about that movie I thought was awesome. Even the things that people like to kind of poke fun at, like the pod racing and stuff like that. I had a blast with it. I don't know how much of it is just nostalgia related and the fact that it was my first sort of introduction into the series or what, and if that's skewed me. But even I just watched it again last night before Ahsoka for, God, it has to be like the 50th time in my life, and it's still it's just like it always has. So Phantom Menace will always be my my number one for sure.
Well, I'll say this. I had Ken Bishop on recently. He's got like 3 Star Wars podcasts. So if you thought I had a lot of podcasts, Ken has a lot of Star Wars specific podcasts.
He's just Ken.
But yeah, we had I had Ken Bishop on, and I kind of brought up I forget what it was. I guess I was asking him this question. He didn't really have favorites of anything. He really liked Star Wars all as a whole. Huh. So it's really interesting. So I kind of gave answers, on what mine were or whatever. But I think I my favorite film, just to put this out there, is, I'm gonna sound like a total I don't know, cliche, is Empire Strikes Back. But
casual.
My favorite prequel is The Phantom Menace, and I went on a whole thing about this when Ken was on. That for me, growing up, I only had Return of the Jedi on VHS. Okay, that was it. It was an old VHS, one of the ones that you'd get from a Blockbuster or video store.
Nice.
So it was a pre-special edition, Return of the Jedi. So it was that. Or it was my Phantom Menace DVD, where those were the movies I could watch. I had seen, obviously, Star Wars, A New Hope and Empire before that and stuff, but they weren't as ingrained in me as those were. And I didn't see Phantom Menace in theaters, but I rented it on VHS library. So I borrowed, not rented, but get it from the library or whatever. And that was, like I said, once I got it on DVD, and then eventually I did have like the special edition trilogy on VHS, and then I had to buy it again on DVD and stuff. But for a while, it was, if I want to watch Star Wars, it was Return of the Jedi or Phantom Menace. So like Phantom Menace is really, like, I can quote a whole bunch of it. One of my favorite parts, it's going to sound weird, is at the beginning when they're about to blow up the ship and the guy just yelled, "Shields!" I love that part. Like, I for some reason, that just sticks with me.
You were right about one thing, Master. The negotiations were short.
Yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan was my vibe too. Like prequel Obi-Wan, especially Phantom Menace Obi-Wan, I really loved. Like I told you, Ron, that's my favorite lightsaber, is the hilt from Obi-Wan in Episode 1. So it's got fondness in my heart. So, of course, everybody says Revenge of the Sith is the best prequel, but I still maintain it's the Phantom Menace. It is the one that feels the most Star Wars to me as well.
Without question.
All right, Chris, your favorite Star Wars film?
So I like Rogue One. It's a really awesome movie. It sets up A New Hope perfectly, and I honestly just think it is, with the spirit of the old original trilogy with today's technology. It's fantastic, and I love the selfless heroes, the underdog story. It's kind of the avenue I like to go in, and I just really enjoy the film. There's just enough of every element for me in that movie. So I'm gonna go Rogue One.
All right, Rogue One. I'll just plug this here too. I am recording a podcast this weekend, which won't be released until like October, but where I'm picking a movie for my friend to see that he hasn't seen before, and he does the same for me. And this week we're going to be recording our Rogue One. He has not seen it, so I was like, let's do it, right? So yeah, I like Rogue One a lot. That was like, really, for me, 2015 was a huge Star Wars year for The Force Awakens, and then immediately getting Rogue One the next year was amazing. So yeah, I really dig it too, and I like Andor a lot, and I know you just started going through it, so
yeah, the most adult Star Wars story by far. Like, it's, we were kind of talking about this last night too. I'll probably say that a million times today because we were chatting all night last night. The three of them. But, my favorite Star Wars has always been more of like the zippy zap lightsaber battle kind of stuff. But Rogue One and Andor, kind of as a default as well, just they give something for that adult audience who's looking for more of a mature story as opposed to just, sort of the flashy visuals and things like that. So I definitely understand why it would be your favorite.
All right, next one here is favorite trilogy. So we'll go with Ron here, favorite trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just piggybacking right off that, it's the prequels for me. I always loved them. They were the butt of the joke for a very long time. And it's funny to kind of see the way that people have reversed course on that, to where now, everyone likes to look back on them so fondly. And I guarantee you, like, 80% of those people were the same ones saying how mid it was and how terrible it was.
They weren't saying mid back then. Yeah.
Yeah, was, true. Yeah.
Kind of a newer thing.
But I thought they were all great. I love Anakin. Obviously, Darth Maul is my favorite character. Not to spoil my next thing that we're going to talk about here. The tragedy that is Anakin Skywalker is just tremendous. Obviously, to see the full sort of circle for the worst, I guess, which is the parallel to him in the OT, the original trilogy. Kind of, it's more of a full circle coming back to the light. The prequel, as we all know, is the full circle to him going to the dark side, basically. And just everything about it was so great. Yeah, no, definitely the prequels for me.
Chris, I'll let you go.
I like the original 4, 5, and 6 saga. I think it is the best written saga. I think the dynamics between the characters are the strongest and most defined. And I like he knew where he was going, whether he knew what was like the whole mapped out thing after and before. And there's just something about the fact that I've seen them the most. I used to watch them with my brother. We would watch Indiana Jones, we would Star Wars, Air Force One. We watched for some reason like over and over and over again. The Fugitive was a big one for us. Just what we had
Harrison
on
Ford.
VHS.
Yeah, anything Harrison Ford.
We honestly, and that's why Han Solo was for the longest time my favorite. But yeah, it's actually weird how much Harrison Ford me and my brother childhood. But original trilogy was just it's the heart and soul of it all, I think.
Tough to beat the OG for sure.
Yeah, I like the original trilogy the best. For me, the prequel trilogy is dragged down by Attack of the Clones. For me, it's my least favorite Star Wars film. So it's it really, for me, it just really kind of drags it down a bit. But I really do like the like I said, Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. So there it is there. And then for the sequels, I actually really like the sequels too, but just not gonna even tempt fate by saying that is my favorite trilogy.
Look, I like the sequels. I enjoy the sequels, but the Rise of Skywalker, it just didn't like. I like the Rise of Skywalker in the sense of it's an entertaining film, but I don't think it lands the way it needed to. It didn't stick the landing the way it needed to. I actually really love the idea of Rey choosing the Skywalker, the found family thing, but a lot of that movie was mess. It was messy. If the sequel could have easily been my favorite if they just stuck the landing a little bit.
I like Rise of Skywalker a lot, actually. It is for me. It is like a really fast film, though. Like, yeah, biggest complaint in the sequels at all for me, it's just the fact that they didn't plan it out before they started making them, and that my biggest complaint is the fact that 3PO and R2 really take a back seat. Glad 3PO had a bigger role in Rise of Skywalker, but really, like, I wish we got to see a little bit more of R2 and 3PO. I mean, like, they both were in a backseat of Force Awakens so much that I was hoping in Last Jedi they would, kind of be more prominent again, and then that didn't really happen. And then Rise of Skywalker, like, R2, like, barely does anything. That's my biggest complaint, is because I really felt like the story was being told like through R2 and 3PO for the first 6. They're in every single film at that point.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And they know all of the generations. That is the biggest thing for me. They know Anakin, they know Luke, and they know the new heroes. So I thought that'd be a lot of really interesting way to kind of have them in there. All right, we're gonna go favorite character, and I'm assuming, Ron, it's Anakin.
He is up there. He's in my top 3. But no, it's Darth Maul as my number 1, just for all the same reasons that I listed about why The Phantom Menace is my number 1 movie. I remember seeing, this is funny, but my first introduction to Star Wars, period, was walking through the store with my dad and seeing the bag of Lay's potato chips with Darth Maul's face on it. And I was like, who the hell is that guy? And, then I discovered he was in Star Wars, and just, I was enamored with him from the second I saw him on screen. Only made even better the way that they were able to sort of give him the story that he deserved in the animated shows, and Sam Witwer, the second life that he sort of breathed into that character to become one of the most notorious in all of Star Wars. Love him, love him, love him, and he will always be my number 1.
Nice. Chris, favorite Star Wars character?
For the longest time, it was always Han Solo. The older I get, it's more Obi-Wan and Yoda. Han Solo was always my favorite growing up. Is not caring but actually caring thing kind of clicked with me, and now the perspective that you get with Obi-Wan and Yoda is what I kind of gravitate towards. I also really have a soft spot for Luke because Mark Hamill is like the coolest guy on earth. So, yeah, Luke, Yoda, Han Solo, Obi-Wan. It's hard. But I'm gonna probably just stick with Han Solo because the answer I've said most of my life.
Nice. Yeah. My favorite is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hello there.
Yeah. Again, kind of more from the episode 1 end of things, but I also really liked Ben Kenobi and, episode 4 and stuff. So I always had a tougher time as a kid when only like episode 1 was out, that was like connecting those dots, in the sense of like, how does he become, this old guy on Tatooine, and finally we got there after some time. But yeah, I mean, that was he's just always been my favorite. This is me meeting Darth Maul at Star Wars Weekends, though. We got this
Nice
here.
That is cool.
Yeah,
Jelly.
yeah. He was really cool that they had him there. That was the last year Star Wars Weekends happened too, so I'm glad I got to go. All right, favorite Disney Plus show, Ron? Live action, I guess, because we have an animated question later.
Yeah. This one's kind of tough because I feel like I liked Obi-Wan a lot more than most, and I think like outside of Duel of the Fates, I think that my favorite Star Wars scene in general is probably that last fight between Vader and Obi-Wan. But I feel like I kind of have to give it to The Mandalorian just because it's been, 3 seasons now. They've done it. The last season was admittedly a little hit or miss for me. It felt kind of directionless at times. But season 1 and 2 were peak. Obviously, that moment at the end of 2 with Luke is just, mind-blowing. It doesn't even begin to describe it. And yeah, Grogu, man, took over the world in 2019 or whatever it was. I think it was 2019.
2019, yep, November 12th, 2019.
Yep, yeah, and pretty much he's been at the center of the pop culture world since then, and for good reason. He's cute as a bun. So yeah, I'd have to go Mando for sure. All
right, Chris, now you just started watching the Disney Plus shows, right? You watched Obi-Wan before.
I watched Obi-Wan, so that's gonna be my de facto answer. But I really liked Obi-Wan. The reason I was like, I'm behind on Mando. I cannot skip Obi-Wan because then I'll be behind on that too. So it's like I am jumping on Obi-Wan, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the Hayden Christensen redemption was fantastic. When the mask breaks and the voice is going back and forth between Vader and Hayden Christensen, that was perfect. And I thought it got a lot of crap for slow playing it, but you know what? It told a really good story and it was really gripping. And I know some people are clutching their pearls about it, but as a guy who's not necessarily a purist, a guy who just wants to be entertained, I was entertained.
Yeah, I liked Obi-Wan a lot, actually, and I covered it extensively on here. And actually, like, my most watched and listened to episodes were all Obi-Wan, which was great. But I'm watching a fan edit right now where they cut it down to a movie.
Yes, it's amazing. I have it downloaded on my computer.
Yeah, and then
I have to check that out.
They did a Book of Boba Fett, a 2-parter too that I have downloaded. I haven't watched it yet, but yeah. All right, favorite animated series. I think this will just be for Ron here.
Yeah, pretty much.
And for me, it's Rebels, which made last night just even more important. I think the fact that it was kind of sequel-esque in the fact that they were able to introduce us to all these new characters, but still also incorporate, you know, all this established world into it that we know and these characters. And it was a prospect that could have been hit or miss. You know, you don't know if people are going to cling to the Ezras and the Sabines and the Kanans the way that they did, and did so like tenfold, probably more so than Dave Filoni and all of them could have even thought. And obviously Darth Maul absolutely shines in that show as well. So definitely I'm a Rebels guy through and through.
Yeah, Rebels for me too. I thought it's Clone Wars, but what I really like about Rebels is the fact that it's linear and the fact that we stick with our group of rebels. You know, Clone Wars episodes can be like, here's your random 3-episode arc of Jar Jar with R2, and you're like, nothing's really happening.
Oh, here's the Bad Batch. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least with Rebels, it was like really following the thread of the same group of characters, which I thought helped for better character development.
And just the fact that has over Clone Wars, the fact that you didn't know where it was going. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, with Clone Wars, we knew it was going to end with the third prequel movie. With Rebels, it was just, you know, oh, Grand Admiral Thrawn, what's this? Where the hell is this going? And then the ending obviously was what it was, and it was beautiful.
And you have the people, too, that always think, well, if they didn't show up in the original trilogy, they're dead, right? So everybody is like, all these guys have got to die. And I'm like, no, they don't. They just have to be somewhere else
like
off
they can't
screen.
just be chilling?
Okay, last one here. Favorite game? Favorite Star Wars game? We'll start with Chris because Ron had the animation question.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. N64 Rogue Squadron. Nice. Me and my brother played this game so much. Believe it or not, there was this thing called Blockbuster. And every now and then we would go to Blockbuster and we would get this game. Eventually we ended up getting the game for good. But like we would go to Blockbuster and we would get this game. And it was a lot of fun because, you know, it was just like you could fly around. It wasn't quite open world, but like it was, you know, it scratched an itch of like a pilot kind of a game. It all the different ships, the Millennium Falcon, the X-Wing. And I can remember like the first 3 like missions like top of like right off my head. I mean, it was a lot of fun and I played it a lot, and there's so much for an N64 game. It's pretty up there. And you know, I know there's more beautiful games now, but I think the simplicity of that N64 game in the mind of a kid, perfect.
Especially back then too, because we didn't know all of these insanely looking, you know, realistic looking video games that we have now. Like that was mind blowing stuff at the time. You know what I mean? And just quick side note, not to get off this topic, but was there any serotonin boost as a kid that topped going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, getting like 3 games and some candy and just going like, oh God, best feeling in the world. It really was. I feel bad for the kids today who'll never know what that felt like.
I feel bad for the kids today who get their popcorn. They get their snacks. They don't realize what they're going to watch because they're on Netflix looking at 8,000 different options.
Yeah.
Oh, that one looks good. Okay, cool. It's not a ceremony.
I'll
it's
add
not
it
a
to my
momentous
list
moment.
and never watch it.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Blockbuster was the thing. It was awesome. I loved Blockbuster.
It was an experience, and now movies are just, you know, one after the other after another. Like back then, like I said, it was truly an experience from start to finish.
You know, it'd be like, oh, that one's on Amazon Prime. Oh, that one's on Hulu. Ooh, that one's on Netflix. Like, no, it was all in.
Convenience isn't always a good thing. Yeah.
Convenience. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. When you don't do things all the time and it's a special event, that's more fun.
And it just makes the movie sit with you a little longer too, when you can't just go, you know, okay, I'm just going to go throw the next one on. You got those 3 movies and that's what you're watching for the next week. You know?
Yeah, and you gear up because you know you have to make the most of it too. Yeah. I'm with you.
Ron, favorite game, Star Wars game?
Yes. So I think because I did as a kid. I loved the Episode 1 video game. I thought it was awesome. But I think I got to go Jedi Survivor, the one that just came out. Yes, PS1. Oh yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic.
Did you have Jedi power battles too, or no?
I feel like I had to.
Mace shows up with a blue lightsaber in that. It's really cool.
Okay, maybe I didn't. That doesn't sound too familiar.
But yeah, Jedi Survivor. Yeah, I'm playing it right now. I'm trying to 100% go and get my platinum medal, trophy. So I'm getting close.
It's just such a beautiful game too, and like even the way that they do like the space locations in Jedi Survivor, it feels so damn immersive. I loved Fallen Order as well, but I think that Survivor just kind of expands on the things that Fallen Order does well. It makes it a little easier to navigate. That was the one thing about Fallen Order. My most viral TikTok of all time, it's got like 50,000 likes, was me on the way back trying to find the ship after every single mission. Like, the hardest part of the game wasn't the missions. It was finding the way back to your ship after you completed the missions.
And but yeah, now they have all the fast travel. What I also like in this game is that the maps are so layered that like you do the shortcut and you're like, oh my God, like that takes me right back to this spot. Like it's like so multi-layered. It's great. It's up there for me. I'm going to be basic again here and say Knights of the Old Republic, but I do want to shout out Xbox exclusive game that I never owned, but all my friends had it, was called Obi-Wan. And it takes place before and during episode 1. And you play as Obi-Wan. And I just remember like playing that and loving that as a kid, but I didn't have an Xbox original. So, and it's never been made backwards compatible. So this Saturday, I'm supposed to go over to my cousin's house and play Obi-Wan because he got his Xbox working again.
Good stuff.